Okay. All right. So I hit record. Okay. So hey, Cailean, hi. Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah. So again, the point today was just to do a very honest, just like AMA style. I have a few questions that folks have asked me that I thought would make sense to ask a recruiter, and I thought of you, and you and I have known each other for a little bit, and you actually recruited me to Design Pickle, which was
Yep.
before people had to apply to jobs. You found me online, and we talked, and I remember the journey because. I remember you and I spoke, and then I did obviously the interview with the different folks. There was some feedback that you shared, which was very good of you guys to share some of that feedback. And I think what was also interesting for us was there was also a little bit of negotiation period. So we went back and forth a little bit, and then we finally closed the deal, and then I joined after that. So that's how you and I know each other from a
Mhm.
while ago. And I
Yep.
do remember thinking at that time that. Like you did a really good job of communicating, of being honest about the job, about the company. Like you were very good about sharing updates and all that, which I think is also kind of rare and has changed a little bit these days, probably because of challenges with time and volume and all that. But yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, if you want to take like a minute or so and share a little bit about your background and how long you've been doing this, I think that would help
Yeah.
people understand kind of where you're coming from.
Yeah, I remember that well. I remember I was in a hotel somewhere. I remember I was in a hotel when we had that conversation of. I remember sharing that feedback with you, um, and I always feel like that's important. Like if you're going to join a company, like you're going to spend a lot of time with these people. So I always start an offer with telling candidates why we want to hire them. And I remember yours well. Plus, I that was a total headhunting move on our end, which I still do. But yeah, I'm Cailean Bailey. My one thing about me is I'm the only Cailean Bailey on LinkedIn. If you spell it right, you can find me. But I've been in corporate recruiting for about 11 years. I started in the agency world. So I always approach recruiting with both outbound finding candidates and inbound attracting candidates. And so I was in an agency for about 4 years. I was at Design Pickle, creative technology startup where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for almost 5 years. I had a short stint at a little bit larger company that was in the industrial AI space, basically a data ops platform for companies that use heavy assets, heavy equipment. And now I'm back in a small startup called Radix. We are a real estate analytics platform specifically for multifamily, so investors, owners, operators of multifamily. We have a couple different product lines, and we're continuing to grow. So I'm here now helping build the talent acquisition infrastructure. So I am a recruiter, but I'm also a sourcer, a hiring manager, a coordinator, all the things. And I've been a director, and I've been an individual contributor, and I'm in a really cool sweet spot right now with hiring for startups. So um, yeah, it's really fun building building the company literally with people and also hoping to contribute to the culture as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's such a. We'll actually touch on that a little bit, but yeah, I think the culture part is so important. I think that's one of the things that drew me to Design Pickle was, I think interaction with yourself and everyone else that I was interviewing with was very positive, and I think that's a big part of, like you said. I mean, you're going to work with people every day, and so you want to make sure you're
Mhm.
joining a team where you can feel like you're part of a group that you can get along with. So that's really important.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, so what I've got is we've talked to some of our users, we've talked to people online, and we've got some questions that I keep hearing over and over again. So we're gonna go through those. The first kind of group of questions is tied to kind of application timing and mechanics. And so one of the things that I've started to hear more of, which I don't know how true it is, and I'm curious about your perspective, is there's this concern by that people have is like, hey, can I be the first applicant, or can I be one of the early applicants in the first 24 hours? And obviously part of that is because there's so much volume now on both sides, right? Like as soon as you post a job, I mean, I'm sure you guys see many hundreds, if not thousands, of applications, and so people want to get
Mhm.
into that queue first. So just like, what are your thoughts on that? Does that speed to application matter? Is it helpful to use the LinkedIn, post it in 24 hours filter and kind of immediately go apply for that job and sit on LinkedIn all day long to do that? Tell me what you
Yeah,
think.
Yeah, I mean, looking for a job can feel like a full-time job, and I feel like that's a tough challenge to have because um, it can be stressful too. Like there's stress, even if you have a job whilst looking for a job, it's kind of another added stressor. But so speed does matter. But I was thinking about this in the build up to this. You don't have to be first. The reality is that first 24 hours really, for me, it even says this on our careers page. We'll get back to in 3 days because I let it build up a little bit. I'm not posting a job and then within 15 minutes starting to filter candidates. I let them build up, and I'll explain. I think we'll probably end up talking about some AI tools here in a couple minutes, but I don't think you have to be first. I think that don't sacrifice a well-crafted application for a position that you are very keen on in order to sacrifice it for speed. Now, if you have everything ready to go and you feel comfortable with your application and your resume and your package, whatever that includes, you have all the things, the links, the GitHub, the portfolio, whatever it is, then send it. I think your application is hopefully going to get seen and hopefully by human eyes, which is, I'm sure, another topic we'll touch on. But I don't think you have to be first. So my thought here is don't sacrifice a well-crafted, personalized application in lieu of speed.
Okay. That's yeah, and it's interesting you say you let it build up because I think most people that are listening are probably concerned about that, in that they really want to be at the top of that queue because they want to get seen. And I have to question that for two reasons. One is that I don't really think, and I may be wrong, but I don't think most ATSs are stack ranking the candidates based on date applied. You can probably look at that, but I don't know if that's a qualifying or disqualifying factor. So I think that people get,
you can filter by that. You can't. It wouldn't have any impact on me. What you can now filter by are things like keywords, and the ATSs that I've used, and I don't have any trouble naming them. If you're cool with that, yeah. I've used Greenhouse, I've used Lever, I've used Breezy. I've used Applicant Pro, and now Radix is on Team Taylor. And I have other friends that have used a lot of them. I've used Ashby as well, I should say. Mm-hmm. All of them now have a fit calculator or like a job match, job score. So what that basically does is it filters by keywords against the job description. So if you're looking at a technical role, it's going to say Python and Snowflake, all these keywords, which are easy to match. And that's what it will rank up to the top. I think it does help, but that's the only way that I would potentially filter that out. Time applied doesn't really matter. And I also say, like, I in my current role, I'm one person. I've had teams as big as 7, but I am speaking my experience only.
Yeah, of course.
I can't imagine what it would be like if you're working at McDonald's Corporation. You would have to have a $1 million tech stack, I would think, to be able to filter through all of these applicants just by sheer volume, and also a huge team. The way I do it is I want to use the tools that'll help make it easier for me, but I'm not going to outsource the entire process to AI or a system.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I don't need to be there yet either.
Yeah, and that's actually that's great to know that that's the perspective you hold. And I think the other thing, at least I've shared with people that I've spoken to, is the speed to application doesn't matter as much because, like you said, you let it build up. And the reality is, especially in today's market, because companies, employers know that there's probably going to be multiple good candidates. No one's making hire decision within the first 24 hours anyways, right? They're not immediately looking at, Hasnain just applied, he looks awesome, let's immediately talk to him. Like, that's not happening anyways.
And fake candidates, like, I know we talked about this briefly, but in my experience, the candidate fraud and fake candidates and whatever term you want to call it, I would venture to say, if you asked most recruiters, if they went and looked at their data, like what the funnel looks like in the first 24 hours, most of their artificial candidates come in the first 24 hours. So in some ways, it's good to kind of pump fake, put the brakes on that first day and wait and then show up day 2, 3 possibly, because it's unlikely the role is going to get unposted within a day. So you still have time, I think. I've never posted a job and said, you have 10 hours applicant pool to get in here, and then I'm closing it. I mean, roles are usually open for much longer than that. So, but that's a trend that I've noticed in the last year, is fake candidates applying very early. And that's because when it goes live on all these platforms, they have these automated, maybe some automated application features, and they send them all through, and they're actually not real, or they've misrepresented their resume and their application.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely revisit that topic, but I wanna ask something about the speed of application. Obviously, LinkedIn has LinkedIn Easy Apply. Do you, I guess in kind of the companies you've been at and the roles you posted, do you usually enable that? Is that an option? Like, what is your perspective on? I know different people have different opinions about it, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
I do enable it because I want it to be an easy experience for the applicant. I think I read a data point that if an application takes longer than 5 minutes to complete, the drop-off rate is alarmingly high. And certainly I can name tools and systems that make it very difficult. Like, I will never make somebody apply with a resume and then also input all their education and all their work history.
So you mean you wouldn't do the iCIMS thing?
Okay, yeah, you said it. But
hey, we can call them out. We're not endorsing anyone here, so it's okay.
We have no allegiance now. No. So I think path of least resistance is why I do it. It doesn't actually show up any differently on my end if they did Easy Apply. What I will recommend to candidates is, please, and this is for any platform that has the LinkedIn's version of Easy Apply. In the case of LinkedIn, just make sure you're using the correct resume. Make sure it's the most up to date, because it is very easy for some of these platforms to just summarize your profile in a PDF form and send that, and it's actually not your resume.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you can upload it. You can upload a PDF and you can send it, and if you're ready to do that and it's what you want sent, do it. It doesn't show up any differently on my end. Indeed has a feature where a lot of people don't realize they're implying the attachment is actually their Indeed profile and it's not their resume. There's another tool out there. It's probably one of my favorite tools for remote jobs. It is called Welcome to the Jungle. You can create a profile on there. You can also throw your resume on there. We always are going to prefer the resume.
Okay, that's good to know. And then just curious, so if LinkedIn Easy Apply is enabled and you're using, for example, Team Tailor, do you as a recruiter have to go into LinkedIn to see the people that applied via Easy Apply, or does it flow back into like an ATS like Team Tailor? And they're probably all different, but I'm just curious how that works.
Yeah, in my case and the tools that I've used, they all flow into the ATS.
Okay.
Yeah, there's on the back end of these ATSs, there's all kinds of integrations and partnerships that they have. And it just makes it really easy to visualize in my system. I have something that I call the minimal tab mentality. So if I'm demoing a product and the sales rep has like 70 open tabs, I'm like, it gives me so much anxiety. Or if I'm talking to my manager and she's got a bunch of tabs, so I want to keep my tab count very low. Yeah. So that's why I drive them all into the system.
That's I wish, thankfully I have my window is just this window right now, but I have others where I have many more tabs, which we're not going to show. And I guess kind of quick follow up to that. Does Team Tailor then indicate that Hasnain applied via Easy Apply, or does it just say it came through LinkedIn? Like, is there a difference between me going to the job, like the career page, and applying through there, or via LinkedIn? In that, do you see it differently? Do you bucket them differently?
I don't see them differently, and I don't bucket them differently.
Okay.
I think that the careers page is the most updated source of truth, but I understand that these platforms like LinkedIn exist to make the path less resistant for applicants.
Yeah.
It does not show up any differently, and I wouldn't stack rank them any differently. I don't care if I found somebody applied through a random job board that scrapes positions. I don't care if I met them in line at a coffee shop. I don't care if I headhunted them for a month. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
They're there.
Okay. And then
and I keep that information only to myself and the recruiting team. we don't share much of that data with the hiring team just because I want to keep it as unbiased as possible.
Yeah. And as long as you've identified a good candidate, it doesn't matter where they came from, I guess sounds like.
Precisely. Yeah.
And you mentioned something that I do want to touch on a little bit is the length of the application. Now, kind of tying two things together that we've already talked about. One is the sort of the auto applies, the bulk applies, the potentially fake candidates, and then two is the length of the ATS application form or the LinkedIn form. That is it potentially getting to a point where job application forms are gonna get longer to fight the auto apply, bulk apply tools, do you think? Or like where is that headed?
I still think that the rate that these fake candidates are clearly augmented by AI. I think that they're going to probably find a way around that regardless, just given the rate that AI is accelerating in the recruiting space alone. I do think that my philosophy is that I think things are going to become more analog to prevent that. So I'll like bringing people on site and actually doing a technical conversation in real time. Computers closed. Let's use a whiteboard. That kind of stuff. This is the same way one of my best friends is a professor at ASU. He's going analog and doing in-person group projects and then presenting like computers down, phones off.
Yeah.
Sort of like the old school writing out our basic math when we were in school. Like I think that's probably the way evaluation methods are going to trend towards. But I think the scam, fake, fraud, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to find a way around any sort of application.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in every way and in every system and in every kind of role, I think AI is just getting better. And so putting these kind of guardrails, I don't necessarily think that's the right answer. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
Okay, and then just since we're on that topic of kind of using AI and all that, I know you said you look at, probably the ones that are fake profiles are kind of maybe easiest to spot, but beyond that, outside of some of the ranking things that the ATSs do, are you using AI to say, hey, I have these 1,000 candidates and give me the ones I should talk to? Like, is that, I guess maybe I'll back up a little bit. So I think the perception in general with candidates is that all ATSs have like heavily invested in AI. All companies are using AI to do that first level of screening. I guess just share your thoughts on how true is that? What is that like? Is that happening? Is that the direction we're headed in, but maybe not today? Where you are on that?
There's truth to it, but I've never used AI as a single point of elimination in my career. Now I'm not at these massive companies that are getting tens of thousands of resumes. I can't speak to that world. I'm sure that they have to. They would have to use like way more advanced AI features than what I am using. What my reality has been is that the tools I've used can help you search way better today than you can searching within your own system of matching keywords, matching, if education's important to a hiring manager, if there are absolutely critical functional competencies that they need, or with technical roles, it's most candidates are putting those keywords on there. If you're a data scientist, you're probably writing all the things that you've used Python for, and you should. Yeah. Those are keywords. So what happens in my system and systems I've used is that you can actually toggle on, and you can toggle it off too, a tool called Talent Fit. They're titled differently across different platforms. And what it will do is it will scrape the resumes in the pipeline, which most people show up in a applied stage. The way I like to visualize my ATS is like a Kanban board. So I'm just moving people across the horizontal plane there. But it will, what it does is it reshuffles those people that match those keywords to the top. And you sort of start with those, like what is closest to the goal based on what the AI has filtered. I'm at a point in my current organization with Radix, I'm not getting such a volume that I can't get through all of them. And I do have someone in our European office that does a great job helping and screening those out as well. So we have 2 eyes on it. If I need to pull in a hiring manager, I will pull them into it as well and say we've got a volume, but we want to make sure we're getting them seen. My goal as a recruiter is to make the hiring manager experience really good as well. So I have to start by using those tools of what is closest to the goal. What else is really cool is like I use a lot of automations too. So there's AI and then there's automations, and so those auto replies you're getting, the stage actions when you're moving people to the next stage. If I move someone into recruiter screen, they'll automatically get an email with my booking link. Like those things are, I think some people maybe confuse that AI for automation as well. But that's the way I'm doing it, and I think from my screening standpoint, it's easy to tell the really good ones. If a job matches and you just, I can tell within a short time that, wow, this looks pretty good. I might move them to a secondary review phase or a spot check with the hiring manager. It's really easy to tell the bad ones. If you are a barista and you're applying for a director of engineering role and you have no engineering experience, objectively, that's easy. It's the middle 50% that is kind of challenging. You have to spend more time on and read more and maybe spot check and bring in another set of eyes on. That can make it challenging. So AI can sort of increase your efficiency on time spent on that, helping find the most relevant candidates first. I will say though, and you know this too, we've worked in startup environments where sometimes you read a resume and you're like, there's something here. Or I've probably presented candidates to you. I'm like, there's something here that doesn't quite match everything, but I talked to this person, and they're it. Like they are very much worth your time. So there's that too. So that's why I still believe in human eyes on these things.
And it's what you're sharing is actually echoing. I've spoken to in the last 3 or 4 weeks a pretty senior person at HR at Walmart, and imagine the volume Walmart gets, but they still look at everyone, every single candidate with human eyes. Now, of course, Walmart has a big team potentially offshore, and there's not the person in America is not necessarily doing all that, but they're still having human beings look at each one. Same thing with I spoke to a recruiter at Yelp. There was one at Expedia, and they've all said that yes, the volume has become really hard, and that's made it very challenging to respond in a timely way. And the recruiting cycles have gotten longer, but they're still looking at each one. Again, like you said, the ones that are obviously not relevant, they get tossed out. But for the actual ones they're considering, they are using human beings to kind of parse those. They're not using AI quite yet. So I think that sentiment seems to be consistent, at least with the people I've spoken to on that side. So that's good to know. Okay, so I'm gonna shift gears a little bit, and we're gonna talk about like resumes and things like that. So I guess when you first open up a resume for a candidate, not the ones that are obviously disqualified, but the one that you're potentially interested in, like in the first, I don't know, I guess maybe first question is, how much time are you spending? Is it 8 seconds or 30? And then 2 is what is immediately the ones that, like, what are the difference between the ones that catch your eye and the ones that you're like, oh, I'm gonna pass?
If I had to average it out, I'm spending probably 30 seconds. There are times, actually, to be fair, I've seen applications where they actually don't put their resume and they put, I've seen an eviction notice instead of resume. I've seen a separation agreement or like a term letter.
Oh, wow.
I've seen tax return.
Oh, wow.
And when you're applying quickly and you look at all the different files on your computer, I don't blame anybody. I'll write to them and say, hey, I think you meant to, I want them to know that, hey, I'm going to destroy this. Please reapply with your update.
Just a mistake in attaching the file.
But it goes back to that, what's good and what's bad. And I don't want to say, I maybe should use a different term for bad. It doesn't mean it's a bad person or bad profile or bad resume. It just doesn't align. So aligned and misaligned. what I would say is on the ones that are aligned, what I'm typically doing is quickly moving them to a secondary evaluation phase. On the a poorly formatted resume, or and I certainly will talk about design. You and I worked in the design, very design heavy place, and that did that has given me a lot of opinion on design. But a poorly formatted resume with a lot of misspelled words, that is a very quick way to do it. I mean, we're probably not going to hire a copywriter with typos, objectively. So that middle, like 30 seconds or more, or like that middle 50% there is when I'm spending the most time, like reading. I'm looking for keywords. I'm looking for experience, looking at companies, where they've been. Do they work cutting edge technology? Do they work enterprise? Are they startup people? The length of time I spend is also dependent on the knowledge that I have in my brain from the hiring team and what they actually want. So I have to factor in all that into my decision. I will say, though, in today's world, there's almost no excuse for not having a resume that's like formatted. There are so many tools out there. I have a few favorites. I have Canva is a great tool nowadays, just embedded in Adobe. You can use templates. Like, I will say it. There's no excuse for having a poorly formatted resume. They have made it so easy to do.
Now, do you
nowadays
prefer a better formatted to like plain Word with the standard information up top, like summary, work experience, but like job title and company name and dates and bullets? Like you mentioned Canva. I mean, I think when people think Canva, they think more like creative design, and some I've seen some where it's like way too much, right? And so I mean, the way and maybe this is where you correct me if I'm wrong, but when I've talked to students and people that are looking and they're like, oh, I want to make it fancy, I'm like, you have to keep in mind that the recruiter's spending maybe 15-30 seconds and they're scanning in the standard. You look kind of top to bottom, left to right, and if they don't see the stuff they expect to see in the spots they expect to see it, like if you have done something where there's multiple columns and maybe your personal information is at the bottom, not at the top, it's more cognitive load. I don't know if that's better than following just a standard template. Like, does that factor in at all for you, or
yeah. I mean, the nice thing about these tools that are available right now, even some of them will even tell you, if you just Google AI resume builder, you're not outsourcing yourself to AI. You're outsourcing the formatting and the structure. It'll even tell you recommended places to put the stuff. For technical roles, I do want to see the tech up top. And let's all also be like clear. I shouldn't have to say this, but name, email, phone number. I don't need a full address. I don't want a full address. Like, I don't really care. If you're remote, it doesn't matter. Perhaps if you're like, I'm in Scottsdale, we hire in Scottsdale, we have an office here. It'd be interesting to know, but I'm still going to screen somebody if they live outside of a 30-mile geographic radius, because maybe they're moving. You never know their full situation. And then I don't, what I don't really care about is like the long narrative of 5-6 sentences about your career history. What I do care about is if there's technical alignment, because so many of the roles that I've hired for and you've hired for in your career have been technical. We have to have a functional match to the role before we have the behavioral match, behavioral competencies and the culture fit match. So one thing that I think with resumes, people will write the company and what the company did. I can find that so easily. What I want is impact. I call them strong I statements.
Okay.
One of my one of the jobs I had before I got into recruiting was I helped college students write college essays for entrance. Like, help them structure it. What should they write about? And I always used to tell them the college is going to admit you, not the group that you were doing this project with, this volunteer work with.
Right.
So strong I statements. I've carried that all the way through my recruiting career. Strong I statements. And because we're not hiring a we either. We're not hiring your department. We're hiring you. So strong I statements and what you did. That's more important to me than than anything else. So, and then back that up with any data points so that then we can, as recruiters and hiring teams, can validate that. Because it's likely that, let's use Radix, for example. We're at a startup stage. We are looking to hire people that have been at or 1 or 2 stages beyond where we're at. Because it shows that people can handle where we've been, or I'm sorry, where we want to be. That's important to me, to represent that. Formatting and the visual side can make that so much easier for me to find so much quicker versus a black text, white page, long narrative. The reality is, nowadays, with the AI tools that are in the system, it will probably, regardless of how and where, if the words are in there, it'll probably get bumped to the top using these talent fit type tools. But there's a way to make that path least resistant for us on the recruiting side, especially for 1 and 2 people shops like I'm in.
Yeah, that's great. That's great guidance. And it was funny when you were sharing that. I had actually talked to a student who had tried to be very creative, and so he was using Word, and he had put his personal information, his name, email, contact information, all that in the header instead of in the body of the page. And so he was having some trouble with some ATSs where he was getting errors and wasn't reading it, and he wasn't getting responses. I'm like, you know what? I don't think ATSs are reading the header and the footer. So you really need to put it in the body. Like, I understand you're trying to save some space to fill it as much information as possible. But if you do non-standard things, then you're probably not getting the responses you want because you've done something that these systems don't understand. And so that's probably detrimental to you. So he did fix that, but yeah, it was one of those. I mean, people do all kinds of creative stuff. The other thing, as you're sharing that that I've gotten feedback on, which I think was really well stated, and I wonder what your perspective is someone was saying is, put your obviously personal information up top. Generally, try to put the title of the role you're applying for somewhere up in the top in the summary or something, so that immediately it builds that connection of, oh, Hasnain's applying for a product manager role. He's got experience in product management, and with the name right up top. But the other thing he was saying was, obviously you want to put kind of reverse chronological where the most recent stuff is at the top. But if you were to think about it from a recruiter's perspective, if they started at the bottom and went backwards, does it tell your story, right? So like make it tell that narrative of who Hasnain is, even though that's probably something that's not in that first 30 seconds. But if they decide to dig deeper, and you're like, oh, really, I want to understand this person, right? Culture fit, etc., experience. Has he worked at the size of companies we want? Does it tell that story in reverse order? So I thought that was good feedback. Again, the challenge, of course, is the 1 page, 2 page, and all that. And I know there's that's looser depending on how many years of experience you have, and you can exceed the 1 page and all that kind of stuff. But I thought that was a good perspective on how to at least think about telling that story.
Here's a line for you. Maybe this is maybe a clip for you. In most cases, if your resume and profile matches what the job wants, it's ATS optimized. If your job matches and you match the role, the ATS doesn't really matter. There's a lot of this ATS optimization terminology thrown out there, and I think there's some validity to it. But if you're what the recruiter wants and I'm doing my due diligence, it's optimized.
Yeah. And actually that leads into the next question, which I think you've already answered, but I'm going to ask it anyways, is should a candidate customize the resume for each role? Should you rewrite it, tweak it, whatever, for the specific opportunity that you're applying for?
Well, I would love to say yes, but I understand the reality of that. I don't think it needs to be for every single role. What I always say is have multiple tools on your tool belt. When I was going through a career transition, I was a college soccer coach for 7 years, and having to represent that to a corporate recruiter, somebody who's in the version of myself now, was really difficult. So I had the sales version of Cailean. I had the recruiter version of Cailean because somebody told me I might be good at that. I had the customer success side version of Cailean. So I had, I think, 4 different, and I had the academic version in case I wanted to continue in some sort of academia. I had 4 different versions of my resume catered towards those types of roles, the bucket. And then if I needed to do a micro adjustment, I could, but it wasn't a heavy lift. changing your resume for every single job you apply for, I mean, that could be in the hundreds. Like that's a lot. I would say start with like 2 or 3 core resumes that you can deploy for each type of role. And if you find the position that you're absolutely keen on, I do think it's worth it to spend the extra time tailoring it to that role and tailoring your outreach to whomever you're going to reach out to for that role. I do agree with that. But for every position, I think that's unrealistic.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good guidance. And then, what is like an instant red flag, something that you might see in a resume that you're immediately going to be like, yeah, this one's out.
Immediate red flag. Well, I think it goes back to uploading the correct resume. Don't put your tax return form on there on accident. But no, I'm kidding. I would say that sometimes in my perspective, in my head, I'm like, why did this person apply for this role? Like, we have a vice president of engineering position open. And if I saw somebody that, I would say my dream job is a barista. If I won the lottery, I'd be a barista. So I'm going to use baristas. If you're a barista and you have zero experience in that, like, I don't think it's prudent to apply to a vice president of engineering role. That one I can eliminate pretty quickly, but I get it, shoot your shot. But I'm big on typos, like if there's a lot of them, and not typos of like, I don't care about Oxford commas, like I'm not that level. I care about how, if you're a sales professional and there's typos in your resume, does that signal potential future issue of lack of attention to detail, professionalism, when that individual could potentially be engaged with a client? That matters. That's a business impact that could really matter. I think there's also, I don't think this happens as much in resumes as it does in interviews, but reasons for leaving, like, be professional about that. Everyone's left a job. Almost everyone's been laid off or like it's okay. Don't nuke your ex-employer.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it was to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Most people don't do that in writing though. I have seen it, but I would just blanket say, like, be prepared to talk about it. Don't put it in writing on your resume.
Okay. That's good feedback too. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. And then what is potentially something that candidates might be obsessing over on their resume that actually doesn't matter?
Hot take. Don't put one of those little things that says that you're like 4 stars out of 5 with Microsoft Word. Don't rank yourself, because that doesn't really matter. I mean, I would say possibly there's utility for that with language proficiency, meaning you speak English and you are maybe intermediate Spanish and Portuguese, something like that. But like, if you're putting that you're, like those dots, right? Like, have 4 out of 5 dots. Some of those templated resumes will say, like, put 4 out of 5 dots for interpersonal communication. Those don't matter at all.
Okay. Yeah.
In fact, if you're talking about what an ATS can filter by, images don't factor into that. And that's technically like it's like a scale. Like, it's not going to factor into that. So I don't think those matter at all. And I haven't met a recruiter that looks at those and say, oh, this person's self-assessed as 3 out of 5 stars on PowerPoint. Like, let's dig into that. Like, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm curious about so we talked a little bit about keyword matching and all that, and a lot of people will now also include like a skills section on their resume, somewhere at the bottom. But what if it's a role that requires maybe like some kind of analytics skills, or let's say it requires Python, and they haven't mentioned it anywhere else on their resume. It's not part of any of the job descriptions, any of the details of what they've written, but it's in the skills section. Is that just, I guess
does that just look like keyword stuffing, or would you like accept that and dig into that when you speak to them? What is your perspective on how that works? Because I think part of it is a lot of people are using that section just hey, what's on the job description? I don't really have a way to include it in something I did, but I'm just going to include it as a keyword just because I want to get picked up.
If you do that, it's my hope that the recruiting team and the collective hiring team is going to look to validate that. So if you keyword stuff, be prepared to talk about it.
Okay.
I will say, I will use my arch nemesis, Microsoft Excel, as one of the most inflated skills on a resume. I can say, in my context of how I use Excel, I can do a pivot table. I can do VLOOKUP. I consider myself an Excel expert in the context of how I use it.
Yeah.
If I was going to go and shift my career towards FP&A, I am in the bottom 0.001% of users.
Yeah.
So don't and because I would hope that if I'm interviewing for an FP&A role, any sort of financial, they're going to validate that.
Yeah.
So if you're, be prepared to talk about it, because there's going to be roles. I'm sure that you've worked with the BI type roles, business intelligence, business analytics roles that are going to require hard functional technical skills that I won't just take their word for it that they've done it. I would hope that the hiring experience is built for validation of that.
I think the certainly we want to dig into those. I think the question becomes that becomes something that then the hiring team has to pick up the phone, talk to me, potentially interview me to figure that out. Is there something where if you don't see it in like my work experience and mentioned earlier, and I say I am like a Salesforce expert, but I'm not a salesperson, I've done anything else, it doesn't say anything else about Salesforce, is that like an immediate, like this guy's just stuffed it to get a call and we're just going to skip him?
I feel like in my experience, I will lean more towards, let's have a conversation with somebody. It's my job. Like, it's my job to uncover that. And I'm going to ask how you used it. And that's when you go back and I know we're talking about resume and that pre-interview stuff, but if you do get into an interview, like, you're going to have to be prepared to talk about it. So I want to ask how you used X tool. And if you say, I was part of a team that used it for something and we did this and all this extra, like, I want to know what you did. So just be prepared to talk about that throughout the process.
Okay, that's fair. And then what is your perspective on cover letters? Do you have those as an optional thing on the jobs you list, and do you like to see them? Do you read them? When do you read them?
They're always optional. In any place I've been, they're always optional. I don't disqualify people or reduce my interest in somebody if they don't have one. If they do have one, I will read it. What I would want to see on a cover letter is specificity of why Radix, why Cognite, why Design Pickle, and also what you did that shows true business impact. I think that's where the narrative can exist. I was at Design Pickle when we hired 150 people in 1 year, and it impacted customer retention by experts. Like, that is a good space for telling that longer story.
Okay.
It does take more time, but specificity, personalization, and show business impact. And I'll say this again: don't just tell us what the company did. I can find that.
Yeah. Tell your own. I think what I heard someone else say was it should be considered the opportunity for you to present yourself to the recruiter, hiring manager. If they've shown enough interest to want to read your resume and they've gotten as far as the cover letter, then that's kind of almost the initial phone screen without talking to you, right? It's like, can you put a good enough foot forward? They're like, okay, yes, I actually want to get this person on the phone.
Yeah, let's advance the conversation
right
quicker. what you can also do with a cover letter is you can chop out pieces of that and use it in personalized outreach to
interesting. Yeah.
hiring managers, to recruiters, to executives, whoever you're reaching out to. You can write that in a way that you can repurpose it, so you don't have to re-originate this content over and over and over again. So think about time efficiency. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
You might as well, if you're going to do all that stuff, you might as well put it in a cover letter and then splice it out and send it around.
Yeah, yeah. And that's actually a great segue. So the next set of questions is around outreach and networking. Is what have you seen in that with that regard? Like, what is the what is effective? What works for a candidate to try to establish contact with either you as the recruiter or potentially someone in the organization, the hiring manager, etc.
Yeah, I think that in my experience, I almost always respond to a personalized outreach, even if they're not a fit. There have been times in my career when I've gotten personalized outreach and I'm like, especially in sales roles, go-to-market roles. I mean, if you're a salesperson, like that is your first sell. Like you're selling yourself. I love that stuff. And sometimes it does lead to a conversation, and it can get you there. What it actually does, I'm sure there's some science behind this, is that when I see that name in my LinkedIn inbox or my email inbox, and then I see it in Team Taylor, it's like 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I remember this name. You and I have very unique names. Like we have very unique names. Yeah. They're hard to spell. They're hard to pronounce. So I'll remember that. And if I see it in multiple angles, I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. It does show a desire to, work at that company or work with that person, not just a desire to get a job.
Yeah.
That's the one way to make your outreach feel less. Gosh, I don't want to use the term desperate, but I have gotten desperation notes that say like, I need this job. It pulls my heartstrings. I am an empath, but I'm protecting the business I'm representing as one, and that's the role of a recruiter, to protect the business and augment the business. But I have to say I have positive biases too. If somebody reached out to me and they're like, "Hey man, I played soccer in college too," I'd be like, "Cool, like tell me about that." Like, because I was a college soccer player. Or maybe they're into something else, or they saw a post that I had. But personalized outreach can happen in a couple of ways. One, it can happen through direct messaging, email, LinkedIn, whatever platform. It can happen via people that are responding to like my comments, or I'm responding with comments to my posts. That's another way. People that look, I mean, I'm really active on LinkedIn. I post stuff about work. I post some kind of fun, more playful stuff. I have a very creative approach to these things. And I like when people engage with that, because I see that they're reading about me. And that's not just me. You can do that with hiring managers. And again, it's that like sort of like a creative drip campaign to have your name bubble up to the top. In most cases, job seekers, they just need that first conversation.
Yeah.
To demonstrate how much value they can bring, especially in a startup environment that I've been accustomed to. I want to see that kind of desire and eagerness and hunt. So yeah, it does matter. It does matter. And what actually works is personalized, specific. Tell me how you've like impacted the business in some way.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you also mentioned the comments and stuff, because one of the things I always tell people that I speak to is, first of all, yes, try to look up the company. And there's many tools out there that, the sales tools out there that allow you to look up people at companies and all that, which you can use. And then try to find them on LinkedIn. And I always encourage people not to just send a like blind connection request, because too many people get too many of those in the 200 characters. You can't really say a whole lot. But if you engage with, like you said, comment on the content, engage with something the company's posted, all that, now you've at least shown that you've done your research, you're engaged with the hiring manager, the recruiter, you're engaged with the company.
So I think that that definitely goes a lot further than just the. And then you can always, once you've commented and maybe they respond back, and at that point you can slide in the DM and be like, hey, actually, I'm interested in this thing. Love to hear more. Would you mind speaking to with me or whatever? So I think that's kind of the guidance I give, is avoid the immediate connection request, which is I think a lot of the tendency people have is just quickly hit connect, and sometimes they so do it even without a note. And I'm like, I received tons of those. Why would I accept all of it? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, I want to upvote that and add a little bit more to that, because this could be a long play too. Like, I wouldn't wait until you're a job seeker to engage with people that you people and companies that you're interested in. There's been companies that through my career, several of them have been vendors or partners that I've worked with, and I'm like, wow, their customer service people were so awesome. In my mind, I'm thinking, if ever there was an opportunity, or if ever I'm job seeking, this is a company that I would target. But like, I want to engage with those types of companies when I'm even passively seeking. Now, if I'm passively seeking, I don't want my current company to know, I'm not going to comment on a post that says, I would love to work there, hire me, I got to get out of here. Like, there's nuance to that, but you can also you can also DM those people and just say, hey, I really appreciate what you guys are doing over there. I've always held X company in high regard. Just connect. Just connect. That's all you have to do, is just connect. And when the time is right, maybe you can send that more personalized note.
And I think there's a lot of interest groups, LinkedIn groups, all those, where there's also good opportunities to just, keep yourself like in people's purview. And I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is, and I'm sure you still do this, is you're still sourcing candidates too. So you're looking on LinkedIn, you're searching all that, and LinkedIn really does prioritize the people that it perceives are active LinkedIn users, because it wants to make sure that if you're a recruiter or a hiring manager that is paying LinkedIn tens of thousands of dollars for access, it's surfacing the people on LinkedIn that are going to respond, right? And so, kind of going back to what you were sharing earlier, one of the other things I also recommend is, if you're going to go Google someone, whatever, you find like Cailean, and you look at Cailean's profile, and he hasn't posted anything on LinkedIn in 6 months. No matter how many times you message him or connection request him or comment on his older stuff, if he's not on LinkedIn, he's not on LinkedIn. It's not going to make a difference. So find someone else at that company that's actually active and get in front of that. Which actually is a great segue to the next question, was how would someone if there's a role at Radix, the VP of engineering, how does someone like myself on the outside figure out who is the one person or the two or three people that are worth starting to engage with, get in front of, all of that? Like, what is my strategy there?
A lot of that information is publicly available now. I mean, LinkedIn is I think is the best source of truth. Typically, just go into the company page and find who's who in there. LinkedIn can also be one of those tools that, like you just said, you can connect with somebody, but they may never respond. Maybe they don't want to, or maybe they're just not active on LinkedIn. In my world, when I think social media, I think LinkedIn, because that's the world that I live in. That's just like where I've lived and found people and had a great experience with that. I still hold LinkedIn in high regard, but I think nowadays, like, it's going to be easier to find out who's who. I don't know if there's a tool for job seekers the same way there is like a Zoom info for salespeople. I'm sure. I mean, they're essentially the same.
I mean, you're selling yourself to the company.
I mean, I don't think people have to spend money, but you can upgrade your LinkedIn, LinkedIn Premium. Like, that's a real thing. I think it's like $30, but I don't think one has to do that. But that would probably be the quickest way to be able to cold outreach somebody that you're not connected with. That's a real thing. I mean, it's the same as LinkedIn Recruiter. I cold outreach people that I'm not connected with through LinkedIn Recruiter, and they can opt into receiving it or not.
And I'm curious, so if let's say for the VP of engineering role at Radix, if I
found someone on the engineering team, I reached out to them and said, had it started engaging with them and had a conversation and expressed interest. How does that make its way back to you? Like, do those people come back and say,
Yeah.
hey, Cailean, Hasnain reached out on LinkedIn, seems like an interesting candidate. He said he's applied. Have you seen his profile?
Yeah, it always helps. So internally, what we try to do is say, hey, if someone's reaching out to you about a role, like direct them to the recruiting team, because we are also the buffer of things like compensation, process, interview, logistics, all those things. We don't want an individual developer somewhere thinking that they know what the comp range is or the level. They may misrepresent it. So I've always tried to say, just drive it back to me. If they reach out, great. Bump them over to me. I'll handle the communication. It does help though, for sure. If you can, if I have, okay, there's a sales tactic too here where it's like most important top officer or very important top, something like that. I remember reading this book when I was in the agency about VITO. VITO was what they called it. You reach out to somebody, possibly the department leader. It may not even be the hiring manager, the department leader. You reach out to the director because you're interested in the manager job. If the director of the department forwards that to me, that's coming like down the slide.
Yeah.
So I'm looking, thinking, okay, well, if Nick thinks that this person's a good candidate,
Yeah.
I better screen him.
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it too. And in sales, like if something comes down from your boss, you're probably going to explore it, right?
Yeah.
I may have misrepresented like the actual motion there, but I think the general sentiment is, if it's being forwarded to me by our CEO, I'm going to talk to that person.
Yeah.
And do the due diligence. So
yeah. And I'm curious.
We did that last week. I did it last week actually.
Yeah.
Somebody in a networking group with our CEO our CEO had told his networking group, hey, we're looking for a senior data engineer. Another CEO, it was like a CEO cohort, forwarded an email of an intern that they had used previously and did really well, and then forwarded it to our CEO, who forwarded it to me. And so I had like multiple pieces of validation through there. For one, by who, but also the summary from another CEO that sent to our CEO that came to me was really good. And I was immediately on that one. And that person did apply through the proper channels, but it just would have taken a little bit longer to get in front of them.
Yeah.
And now they're about to be in that hiring manager phase of interviews, where maybe this week I would have just gotten to screening them.
Yeah.
They're 3-4 days ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. Yeah, it's great that channel works. And I'm curious then, and I've heard it's stated different ways, but if I find a role and I apply and then I'm engaging with people and maybe I find a way to identify someone that knows someone that works at Radix, do I still ask for a referral and is that still valuable? Or what is the right way to make sure that connection is made known so that I can up my chances?
Yeah, referrals are always going to be a good thing. As long as it's valid referral, it's not just, this is my cousin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't validate their work at all.
Yeah.
But a validated referral that can vouch for them is going to jump to the top of the list. I would say almost always. There's data behind. I think it was referrals get hired 55% faster. I may be off slightly on the number, but it's very high. And also their longevity and retention with the company is longer too. I do recall reading that somewhere. I don't remember the exact data point, but it's high enough to be significant.
Okay. Yeah. It's and then would you say if there's a role that I really am very interested in, spend time trying to find that referral ahead of applying, or go ahead and apply and then still try to chase down those other things?
Yeah, always apply, because that is our source of truth. So either we're finding people and having that initial conversation and we're putting their information into the ATS, but it's more likely that we'll just need that person to apply so that we can handle our communication inside of our applicant tracking system, because we need all that information embedded in there for legal reasons, for compliance reasons, for audit reasons, for efficiency reasons. Like, we have everything in there. So always apply. And then if you can apply and then say, hey, I've already applied, that's signaled interest. Referral, can you bump my name over to this person? I mean, a lot of companies have referral bonuses as well. So that's super helpful.
So go ahead
I
and
would
apply
say,
and then chase down whatever connection you can and still pursue that, but
uh-huh,
definitely put it in. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Curious about your perspective on interviews. Where do you find that most candidates fail in an interview? Like, is there something that's common that generally happens that you see where you're talking to them and you pretty much early on know that they're not going to make it, but you're just going to be polite and wrap up the
Yeah.
conversation anyways?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give people space to tell their story. I would say it kind of goes back to what I said earlier of like strong I statements. We want to know, did they build the train at our stage in the company's event? Did they help build the train, or did they jump on it when it was already moving? At our stage, we need builders.
Yeah.
We need people that have demonstrated that they're adaptable, flexible, but also want to build foundational elements of a company or a function. So there are very few contexts in one's life where it's okay to talk about yourself. The interviews are one. Dating is another, and one could argue that they're very similar in terms of what the process is like.
Yeah.
So I would say make sure you're representing what you did, and make sure that you can demonstrate the impact that you made. Because not everybody has on their resume, I was at a startup and we were at 10 million and we exited at 150 to this massive company. Like, that's 1 out of 100, maybe even less. But you have to, you can still grow. You can still be in environments where, even in a large company, if you're at a large company, you're still in a team. You're still making an impact. Like, represent that impact. And nowadays you can ask ChatGPT or any sort of Claude or anyone. You can ask, like, I need to represent my impact at this company. You can have a full conversation with it, and it will ultimately kick out something that will help prime you for that conversation.
That's 100% true. There's so many great tools that can help you with that.
And don't over talk. Like, don't like keep it relatively concise, because it's likely that a recruiter has a set of questions they're trying to get through, and if we only get through the first one and we only have 30 minutes, then it's going to be pretty tricky. Like, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's actually great guidance too. Yeah, perfect. Okay, awesome. And then what about post-interview? I mean, are you seeing people are still reaching back out, engaging? Do you like, do those ones get bonus points? What is that? What is your expectation, and what do you see happening in kind of recruiting today?
Yeah, my expectation has changed. I used to think it was an expectation, almost an assumption that everybody would do it. Again, it's a volume thing, so I don't expect people to do it. So how I talk about the follow-ups are, if somebody doesn't do it, I don't think anything of it. If somebody does do it, I'm like, oh, that's nice. That's great. Like, they signaled interest. I even more so like it when they interview with the hiring manager and they have the wherewithal to go back in the calendar invite and find the email of the hiring manager and write to them and copy me, or the hiring manager will send it to me. And that's just a really professional thing to do. If they can recap something or say, when you asked this question, it was really, really cool the way you asked that question. It got me thinking about how I can make. You don't have to write the Iliad here but a simple thank you that I think does help. But again, I don't discount if somebody doesn't do it.
Okay. And then if it's not with you, when it is, for example, the hiring manager, and that candidate is engaging, does it find its way back? Like, would the hiring manager put in the ATS? Like, are there notes? Like, how do you guys keep track of,
hey, yes, this candidate has expressed interest and is continuing to engage and therefore has written back. And so we will, somewhere you're accounting for that, right? Like, how do you keep track of that?
Yeah, that's all in the applicant tracking system. I will drive everything towards the applicant tracking system, even, forwarding emails in there. A lot of emails that are back and forth between the recruiting team and the applicant are embedded or come from the applicant tracking system anyway. So ultimately, what in the ideal scenario, which not all scenarios are ideal, you get all the people that are involved in the hiring process: me, hiring manager, team, peer, those who did the technical interview, whoever's involved. It's usually 4 or 5 people. Involved, and you sit down and you have a debrief. It's like, well, let's talk about these 3 finalists. Like, what did we like? What did we like? What did we didn't? Who's it gonna be? Are we gonna go back to the drawing board? Like, you get all that in there, and then you can use the ATS to help find all those notes, and I can probe for questions of like, hey, you interviewed this person, they said this, and what did you think about that? Like, let's dig into that. That's ideal scenario. That can happen. That whole scenario can also happen in Slack or Teams or whatever too.
And then that's where you potentially also might be like, oh, actually, Hasnain reached back out and followed up, versus this other person never actually responded, and maybe that's extra bonus points just to push you over the edge, like potentially.
It totally could. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And this is this next one. It's really hard to answer, I know, and I'll if it's one of those where there isn't really a clear sort of response, that's fine, and we'll obviously let that go. But just curious, is I get this a lot, is most people that are out there that are looking today are like, hey, how do I get feedback on what happened? How do I figure out why I got rejected? I did 2 interviews and then I heard nothing, or it felt like it was really good and I got denied. So is there, and I know this is a really hard one to answer, so I'll leave it at there. Like, share whatever you think
I get it.
is there. Just because
I'll
this
hit it
comes
head
up a lot, and I'm just from and I kind of know the answer, but I want you to share your perspective on this.
Yeah, I'll hit it head on. I mean, I think in one hand, people are scared to have a hard conversation. People are nervous about what the receiver is going to feel and think because they didn't get the job. I do understand that some companies objectively do not give feedback. The same way some companies have a policy where they do not give a reference, but they'll verify employment. I get that. That's probably a legal compliance thing, that internal controls type thing. For me, it was about midway through my tenure at Design Pickle, so thinking 2022, 2023, I created a 15-minute Calendly link to send to candidates that were beyond a certain stage. I can't give feedback to every resume, every person. So we're talking mid to end stage candidates. I just offered it to them. I created a template. I said, if you want to talk, we're going with someone else, and the reason, and here's what we're doing. If you want to talk more about it, here's 15 minutes. Let's chat. Or I can send you a voice note. I can send you a Loom. Thank you. They invested time, so I started doing it then. I think I'm an outlier in that, and I wish I wasn't. That should be the norm, not. But I also I've been in environments where we're not getting 10,000 candidates, so there was a little bit more of bandwidth for me to do that. What I found is when I did provide feedback to candidates, I thought people were going to tee off on me, say, you're an idiot, you guys don't know what the hell you're looking for, you're wrong. The complete opposite thing happened. Our candidate NPS scores went up, so we're tracking candidates' experience. They're like, wow, this is super helpful. It's going to help me on my next job. I've even seen, I think one of the best metrics for a good recruiting team is, and this sounds so crazy to say, how many rejected candidates are referring people to your company?
Interesting.
That's how you know you've got a good experience, a good candidate experience. I understand that's very much challenging, and but that person might work for our company in a year or in a different company in a year. But I think to go back to the original question, I think it's volume. There might be some legal or compliance reason. I also think it's a little bit of fear of being the one that has to reject people. It is easier just to say reject.
Yeah.
In the
Auto send
ATS,
that email and
gone.
move on. Yeah. Yeah. I get
Gone.
it, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the easiest way to do it. I will say if there's any recruiters listening to this, it's never been easier to be a memorable recruiter because you know what you have to do to create that amazing experience for people that you're not hiring.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious now. I mean, how would you tell if someone that was rejected is recommending the company to someone else?
It'd have to be pretty organically. In my experience, it's been organic through engagement on LinkedIn, through email. Hey, I saw you guys posted a VP of engineering. Like my former leader's looking. I had a great experience with you. I still recommend you. I didn't create that metric. Laszlo Bach, who was the head of people at Google, early Google, said he had some statistics like 90+% of people who interviewed at Google still recommended working at Google even if they didn't get the job. And I always held that as a really cool metric.
Yeah.
I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I do like that. Okay, and then I have like 3-4 questions that we don't need to have long answers. I'm just curious because these are ones that most candidates don't ever get to hear about or see that world from your side. So just curious if you can share some things around. I mean, as a recruiter, like how are you measured? Like what are your success metrics and what are the things that you count as important in your kind of day-to-day?
Yeah, I measure speed, but I'm not measured on speed. Because I think time to fill is always the one that people hear about. But if you take an extra 2 weeks to hire a sales professional that then comes in and hits 1.6x of their quota, like no one's going to care about the extra 2 weeks that it took. Nobody. I've yet to meet the person that has cared. Nowadays, a lot of recruiting metrics are shifting towards talent as a whole, like not just talent acquisition. It's like we want to make sure that who we're hiring is impacting the business. So now we're tracking quality of hire at 30, 90, 180. I think some of my colleagues are in that similar range. But like time to impact and how are they doing? Like not just do we like this person? A lot of people are likable. Like what are their business? Like what kind of things are they doing for the business? In a startup, that's pretty apparent to see because you can't hide. I think that the quality of hire is something that is very much at the forefront of how I'm measured as well. I do track source data as well, sourced versus inbound. So like I found you, that's a different metric for me than we had 800 applicants for this role. Yeah, that's something important as well. Because what that signals is like, do we have a talent attraction? Like, how come we have to go find the person versus why aren't they applying? Like there could be reasons behind that.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. That's great insight. Thank you for sharing. And then I also get this question from people is I'm just gonna say Figma because I have Figma open, but I'm looking at Figma's job page and there's multiple jobs I'm interested in. Should I apply to all of them or should I apply to the one that I really feel is the one for me? Like what is that from your perspective? How do you then evaluate that candidate?
If they've applied to multiple roles?
Yeah, at the same company. Like if there's ones they feel like, yeah, I'd be good for this customer success role, but also maybe the sales manager role, or I don't know. So maybe there's a few that are like in the sphere of things that I've done, and like I'd be approximately good for each of them. And I'm not married to one specific one. Is that does that look like a lack of commitment, or what? What is that?
I think it could be jack of all trades, master of none type sentiment for an internal recruiting team, or that they don't know what they want. In a startup environment, though, I mean, you and I have worked with people that are heads of sales and marketing before. We've worked with people that are both product and engineering, BI and there is value in demonstrating all that you can do. What I would say is go for the one that is most likely to get you a conversation first. And then if you have that relationship, even I've been in interviews where I've been being interviewed as a candidate where I've said, I actually think I might be better as an individual contributor here and not a manager or director. Based on what you need, like hire me in this. I think that's like what is going to get you closest to the goal, which is ultimately to get hired. Like start with that.
Yeah.
If you have a good conversation and a recruiter is really open to the idea, and you sense that you didn't get, at least you've opened that door. You have a dialogue now, where maybe in a month or 2 months, if they post something different, you say, hey, here's why I might be also a fit for that role. And that person's like, then you're already like top of mind in that company. And hopefully the conversations have gone well where it warrants both parties re-engaging, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's possible for sure.
Okay.
That's happened to me in my career. I've seen people get rejected for one role and hired for a different one in the same company.
Okay, that's good to know. And then what is it that candidates maybe think that's important in the hiring process that actually isn't really that important from your perspective?
Oh, what do they think matters that actually doesn't? I'm trying to, there's things that come to mind, but I'm not sure if I want to say like, for me, I don't really care if they've worked in a lower mid-level role at a FAANG company. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't like when people put X Meta, X Uber, X on their LinkedIn. Like, I mean, if I drove for Uber in 2015, am I ex Uber? Like, so I technically, I guess I could do that, but I don't really care about that. I care about like the individual impact that people make, not necessarily the jersey they wear. I'll say something. Maybe this is a hot take. I don't think that where you got a degree from matters as much anymore, so long as you have it. If a degree is important to have it, it's more important than where you got it. I think that in the upper echelons of the academic world, and at least in the United States, I think there are doors that can get opened for you through that network. But I've worked at Ivy League institutions before, and I think that the network is where there's a lot of value for that. But now I'm in recruiting, like I've hired some amazing people I'm down the street from the largest state school in the country. And I think it's some of the highest impact people. I mean, half of our leadership team ASU grads. I mean, we're not specifically going to look and hire from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford. I mean, of course, that does signal that those places are hard to get into.
Yeah.
I get that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a better fit. I think there's a lot. I think maybe people index on education too much.
Okay.
To have a 4-year degree, I think, is better in a lot of cases still today. But I don't know. I don't want to get too far into that.
So I guess if I was to kind of to play that back, sounds like you're not necessarily too concerned about the pedigree or the brand of the institution or the company they work for. You're more looking at what did they do at those places, and are those things that they did meaningful to the current role in the company that you're hiring for?
And I'll give you an example. I've done an intake for a leader, like an intake of a role for a leader, and they've listed out all these things that they wanted that were all behavioral. They would say, I want someone that has a degree from X type of school in this, and that they have X number. And then I said, well, tell me what's going to make this person successful. Because that's paper, like that's what's on paper. Tell me what's going to make this person successful. And they went full behavioral on the profile. And they're like, what do you think we're going to find this person? So honestly, what you've described I'm going to take my car and I'm going to drive over to Camp Pendleton because we need to hire someone that's just coming out of the Marine Corps. That's the exact behavior you described. I said, you don't need someone from X school. So what you just described is exactly the profile of some people that I've known that have exited the military and have struggled to find jobs.
Yeah.
I know that because that is a world that, we can get into that, but like some of those people that come from diverse backgrounds are overlooked when they have all of those behavioral competencies that companies want.
Yeah.
That's where I kind of get worked up because I just remember saying that to them. I said, you need a Marine or someone that's just coming off of a ship in the Navy that, or like that is the profile you want, or somebody that's ascended in, has worked their ass off to get to the pinnacle of perhaps some sort of artistic endeavor, like somebody that's like had to kick down doors to find their way to something. Like that's what this person needed, not, I think they had made up in their mind that they needed something pedigree in the background. It's like, no, man, that was my joke. So I'm driving to Pendleton tonight and I'm going to hang out at the bar and meet somebody that's exited the Marine Corps. I didn't actually do it, but that was just like that was what I thought coming out of that.
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of follow that thread a little bit, I'm curious, especially given, the way things are today with layoffs and companies downsizing and all that. Do you think that candidates need to explain the layoff, the downsizing, the gaps in their resume, all that? Like when you talk to someone and you find that their profile is good, but you see they've been looking for 6 months, does that at all color your opinion of whether you should speak to them or not, and whether they're a good candidate?
Yeah, good question. It doesn't color the opinion because it's so common, unfortunately. I would say candidates should be prepared to talk about reasons for leaving. If it's a layoff and it's no fault of their own, I mean, shoot, that can be just bad luck, bad timing. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of people. Be prepared to talk about it in a professional way, but don't shy away from it. Lean into it. Also, sometimes places just aren't a fit for you. So short stints it's just not a fit. Like be prepared to represent that. Like it's happened to me too, and it's okay. I've actually I've seen people turn that into a real strength, and it doesn't necessarily signal a pattern unless it's happened like 4 or 5 times and they've been termed 5 times in a row. Like that's a pattern.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially in the last 5-6 years, I mean, since COVID kicked off 6 years ago, 6-ish years ago, stuff has happened that's pretty wonky, and it hasn't been people's fault. And I feel for that. And hopefully the recruiters and hiring teams have some empathy there.
Yeah.
Or sympathy.
Yeah, I think that people always have that concern, especially because today and they're competing against so many other candidates. They're like, how do I explain the fact that it's taken me a while? But I think, like you said, it's kind of the reality right now. And so, rather than shying away from it, just say, hey, yes, this is just what happened, and it was out of my control.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one last question for you, and then we can wrap it up. Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of like the top 5% of candidates that you see that do something differently or uniquely from everyone else, where like you see an application for a role and you immediately like, hey, yes, that's the one, and I definitely want to talk to that one. Like, is there something that is common across any of those?
They're able to demonstrate collectively across whatever avenue they're using to communicate, whether that's application, outreach, they're able to communicate functional alignment to the role, showcase what they've done that aligns to those functional things, software development, sales, whatever it is. Then in the interview, they represent the behavioral side of being really curious, want to grow. So then as a hiring team, we're starting to think about the what do we need now, but the future state of this person and this function and this role in this team. And then cultural alignment. They align to the value, they want to wear the jersey of the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, man. I really appreciate it.
This was fun. This was fun. I love doing this kind of stuff. And hopefully there's value out there, or that you can clip it and find some value there.
Yeah.
I have to jump to an interview right now, actually. So
okay, so this is good. I'm glad we wrapped up on time. I really appreciated it. I'll definitely follow up, and I'll share links with you and all that. But
Thanks, buddy,
Amazing.
for taking the time. It was
Hey,
awesome.
appreciate it, man. Good hanging out with you.
All right, talk later.
Yeah.
Have a good one.